Welcome back to the Policy Viz podcast. I'm your host, John Schwabish. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you had a nice, safe, and healthy New Year and holiday season. I hope you got a little time to rest and relax and gear up for another great season of the podcast. I've got a great set of guests for you coming up over the next few months. We're going to talk about different tools to create your data visualizations. We've got folks coming on the show to talk about how to give good presentations, how to create better data visualizations, how to work with qualitative data, and lots more. And to kick off 2025, I'm excited to welcome Kevin Wee to the show. Kevin is a Tableau and data visualization creator. Kevin and I have known each other for a while now, and I finally was inspired to invite him to come on the show because he created this really cool dashboard a couple of months ago on data podcasts, of which, of course, this podcast was featured. So I'm very grateful to him for including me. And so I invited him to come on the show to talk about his Tableau journey, how he thinks about using Tableau, how he creates his really fabulous backgrounds and foreground images in the tool, and now that we're at the beginning of the year, what he thinks the tool is going to do and improve or not over the next year and beyond. So, no further ado, here's my conversation with Kevin Wee on the first episode of the Policy Viz podcast in 2025. I hope you enjoy it. Hey, Kevin. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. How are you? Good to see you again. It's been a few months.
Well, it's been a few. Yeah.
It's
been more than a few months.
Yeah.
I think the last time you and I met was in the Outlier conference.
Yeah, well, that was probably first. Then we saw each other at Tableau,
and then before that it was
spring.
And then before that it was GRC, and then the Tableau
That's
conference.
Right. That's year. Right. GRC. I forgot about that. Yeah, that's right. All right. Well, great to see you again. I hope all's well. So we're going to talk about Tableau today for folks who always want to hear about your cool work. I thought we would start with your Tableau journey because everybody has like this unique, interesting story about how they got into Tableau and why they got all excited about it. So I want to hear about that, and then we can talk about some of the stuff that you've been working on.
Yeah, sure. Regarding my Tableau journey, I started learning about Tableau in 2019. I was a graduate student at Purdue University in the Department of Chemistry. However, my research was on scientific visualization. Effectively, I was evaluating a specific biomedical animation produced by Harvard Medical School, University of Toronto, and UC Davis. They co-produced an animation, and I was the evaluator of the animation. By the end of the data gathering process, I got a lot of data about how the animation was made, how students perceived the animations, how teachers wanted students to learn from the animation. Got all this data, had no idea how to analyze it at all. So I was exploring different analytics tools, quantitative and qualitative options. Eventually, I bumped into Tableau. It was recommended by one of the data visualization professor that I met in an academic conference. And then I took her class in 2019. And then after that, I just started to use it to build some charts for my own project. And then the pandemic hit in 2020. And then that was also the time where I realized that I really need to find my next career. I knew that very early on that I didn't want to work in academia. So in the pandemic, when Tableau conference was online, that year, that's where I came across the term Tableau Public, Makeover Monday. Everybody recommended me, in order to find a data job out of academia, it would be best if you could have a portfolio. So I started doing Makeover Monday, and then gradually realizing that I was actually quite good at that thing. And then by the beginning of 2021, I was reached out by someone in the Data Visualization Society, specifically in a Chicago location tab, because I've been sharing my personal portfolio work in the Slack channel. So he reached out to me and said that, oh, by the way, I was also from Purdue Chemistry, and you're also from Purdue Chemistry, but you're not doing chemistry stuff on the internet. What's up? And then we talked, long story short, after a long 2 and 3 hours chat, he said that, by the way, I'm currently working in a credit card company and we may have an opening position if you would like to test the water with us.
Huh.
That's how I got my job. And I just passed my 3rd year anniversary recently. So that's my career path. So I switched out of academia. But at the same time, I still do a lot of things with the Tableau user community, or
Hmm.
some people that are familiar with the term, it would be called the data fam. So I was pretty engaged with the data fam. I started giving talks in different Tableau user groups, or tucks for short, and suddenly everybody want not everybody, that's very not humble of me. Suddenly I received a lot of opportunity to give talks in different occasions, and that's I think in 2022 I was chosen as a Tableau ambassador, and then starting this year I was chosen as a visionary based on all of these works that I've been doing. So yeah, that's a very long answer to
No, that's
what
great.
do you
Well,
mean by my
congrats on all that. I wanted to ask about the portfolio building because this is a question that comes up a lot for people who are starting out or maybe they're shifting gears in their career. And one of the questions I hear the same kind of thing is like, how do I kind of get started in the field? And so how did you think about building your data viz portfolio? Was it uh, were you sticking with a single tool? Were you just like working in the Makeover Monday and just trying things? Like, and where were you posting things? Like, so for folks who are kind of in a similar boat as you were, what
Mhm.
would your recommendations be to help them build out like their data or data viz portfolio?
I think, first of all, I think a lot of people, when they started out, they were overwhelmed by all the options and platforms out there.
Yeah,
It's understandable because, especially nowadays, different tools, a lot of tools are very easy to use and a lot of tools are free. So, how do you choose? I think my answer is it doesn't matter. Stick with one
mm-hmm.
and be good at one to begin with, and then you may branch out.
Yeah,
Um, of course, to me, a lot of people didn't know that even though now I was known for Tableau, before 2019 at Purdue, I was known by the person that can do everything on PowerPoint.
mm,
So I was on PowerPoint a lot. I was on Excel a lot. It's just that I realized that PowerPoint and Excel is hard to manipulate a large body of data set, especially
yeah,
non-numerical data sets. That's why I branch out to different options, and that's why I've learned other softwares. I was actually also exploring rawgraph.io
mm-hmm.
for a couple of years, well, for a couple of months. But then I realized that it's easy to start with something, but it's hard to customize um, the chart compared to using Tableau. But
Yeah,
okay, go back. I started using Tableau because number one, it's free for student. So that's easy. That's free for
yeah.
student, and that's also what I've heard. Very famous on the street. By that I mean in the industry. So Purdue gave annual free license to students, so I leveraged it. And also, I also learned that Tableau Public, it's a freely used platform website for you to put your work up there and then share your take on different data sets. So that's how I get started. And also, a lot of people also ask, like, there's so many different challenges for data out there.
mm,
And my recommendations always, if you just started, just pick one. And I would say maybe one of these two, Makeover Monday or Back to This Basics, because these two are just enough for you to warm up. And once you get into the cadence of creating good quality charts with these two challenges, you can branch out. You will know when you're ready to branch out.
mm.
Don't try to do everything to begin with. Stick with one thing and do it until you can repeat it without too much of an effort, and then you branch out.
Yeah.
Yeah, hope that
and
answers your
and
question.
and in Tableau, I think unlike many other tools. I mean, I think one of the you already mentioned the data fan, but I think that's one of the reasons why people, really enjoy working with the tools, that there is this community and you have this opportunity to sort of build your profile on Tableau's public, and so on the page, and so you can sort of build out your portfolio. Is that where you pointed people, or did you set up your own separate website to point people to? Again, I'm thinking about someone who wants to break in. They want to do data viz. Say they're applying for jobs. They want to do data viz. Like, should they point people to their Tableau public profile and say, I'm really good at Tableau. This is what I do. Here's my portfolio. Or do you think it makes more sense to have sort of a separate place where people can go?
So let me tell you what I did, and let me tell you what I did, and then we may talk about my recommendation.
Yeah.
I started getting my own kevinwee.com in 2018, but I
Mm-hmm.
didn't actually use it much. I was just more like, I don't want anyone else to have it, so
That's
let's
what I
just
have
buy
it.
it
Yeah.
first.
Yeah.
And then after that, if you go to my Tableau, if you go to my kevinwee.com and scroll to the bottom, you will find that the first couple of blocks that I've made were my own makeover for some charts with the data that I gathered using PowerPoint.
Mm.
And then I not just show before and after, I also explain why I made a certain design choices. Um, it's a good starter, but I am a very slow writer. I realized that very very soon that if you ask me to write something, you're gonna wait for at least a month. So
Mm.
so I noticed that about me. Meanwhile, Makeover Monday kind of force you into a weekly cadence, right?
Yeah.
And then you have to keep on producing the charts, and then only justify it when someone asks of it. So so that became something that I am comfy with.
Right.
So if you're a non-writer like me, if you like to show more than you like to tell, then maybe Tableau Public would be something that you could direct people to. But let's say if you're someone like you can write a lot about your justifications. You can cite different articles. Then maybe a blog would be something that it's more suitable to you. Or you like to sketch. You like to show the sketch and then the viz. Then the blog would be perfect
Oh,
for you.
yeah. Yeah. That's smart. Yeah. Sort of the talking more about the process, or in addition to the final thing, talking about the process. Yeah. That's really interesting. Um, So one of the places where in my own Tableau work, found your work super helpful was in these, I don't know what you call them, but sort of foreground or background images that you can put on your dashboard, the sort of like a skin.
Mhm.
Um, and I was hoping you could talk a little bit about how you think of developing those and then how you actually build them. I know I think you use Figma a lot. The last one I did I needed your help on, I was doing in PowerPoint, but maybe you could talk a little bit about how you think about these images in Tableau and then how you go about building them out.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I think it's a gap that we see in the existing Tableau ecosystem, that it doesn't have too many graphic manipulation interface.
Yeah.
As a result, even in 2020, I already started seeing people using PowerPoint to create images and then lay it as a background or a semi-transparent foreground of a dashboard. With that in mind, and also if you go to Tableau Public, you will see a lot of times people's visualizations, they're clearly not out of the box functionality of
Yeah.
Tableau, be it title, font, or like sometimes you see some very dramatic shading or gradients on the infographic. You know that these are not built just using Tableau. So, and gradually I've heard that the term Figma pop up, and then I've heard that it is one of the commonly used software for people trying to implement graphic design in Tableau charts. I think I learned it in early 2021, so it's still
Hmm.
rather early,
Yeah.
rather yeah, short period of time, and and I just try to play with it. At first, I just try to use it to create, rounded rectangles to place my charts, just make it look a little bit more modern. And by
Mhm.
modern, I mean, modern 4 years ago. I
You're
don't
right.
feel
Yeah.
like them they're modern anymore. But yeah, it's just to do something to stand out a little bit without
Hmm.
distracting too much. But then later, when I joined Discover, the company that I'm currently working with, I got several big projects where I got to build not charts, dashboards from scratch. So I
Mm.
did tell my manager that, can you let me try to use Figma, like just for one project? Let's just try to
Mm.
do it, and then I'm going to use it on the background and maybe lay a semi-transparent annotation layer in front of the foreground, and the users can click show and hide of that annotation layer at will. Let's just sandwich this and see how it goes. Business partner love it. I think it up to the SVPs. Everybody was
Mm.
blown away by that. And then I realized that if I set up this background image and semi-transparent layer well, I can quickly create different iterations of them. Therefore, I started to be able to mass produce a lot of different dashboard layouts in a very short period of time.
Mm.
And they're all visually consistent with good organizations and layouts, and everything's perfectly aligned.
Right.
Everything's perfectly aligned. It looks like it's coming out of a united team instead of
Yeah.
everybody's doing their own stuff. So
Right.
after doing that, I remember within my first 5 projects, I was able to create at least 20-ish charts, not charts, 20-ish dashboard pages,
Mm.
all with very consistent view. And then everybody's were blown away by it. My boss told me that, I thought you're going to take 3 months for this. You finish everything in a week. I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that I was supposed to do
Yeah,
it
I had all this
in
time. Yeah.
um,
So did you? But to set that up,
mhm.
you need to know your dashboard size and layout before you go and build the skin, right? So
Yeah.
like how do you think about or what is your creative process when you're doing that? Are you like, I'm just going to build what I think is the best dashboard, and I'm
Hmm.
not going to worry about the aesthetic. I'm not going to overly worry myself about the aesthetics until like the very end when I can go build in these backgrounds or foregrounds.
Hmm. Yeah. So as two part of the questions. First of all,
Yeah.
let me answer the dimension first.
Yeah.
So I test the dimensions of the. First of all, we're using the fixed dimension, so we're
Hmm.
not doing flexible. The thing about flexible dimension is that everybody has a different laptop and everybody's at home. They have different screens. If you let them go whatever they want, nothing's gonna align. It's gonna be a disaster. What I notice is, as long as the width and the height is in the golden ratio,
Hmm.
it would fit most of the screen in a good degree.
Mm.
So that's good enough. And also, after several trial, I believe we set the width to be 13.8 pixel. The reason why it's 13.8, not 1300,
Yeah.
it's because 13.8 is divisible by 12. So
Hmm.
it can, so in the middle, you can put one, two, three, four,
Oh,
six charts, and everything will still align
fit
without
right.
distribute evenly without the need of decimals.
Mm.
Yeah.
Right.
And also, it's make it very easy to see whether someone stole our design, because like, there's no way you come out with 1808. Yeah, 1308. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
1308.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the dimension problem. Second, aesthetic part. I think a lot of people thought the reason why we use Figma or any graphical software to create a background and foreground was because of the aesthetic. Don't get
Mm.
me wrong, I do think they look good.
Yeah.
But to me, they are first to have a large team, have a consistent visual language.
Mm.
And now I already set the template for you. Now all you have to do is just reorganize the cards for the charts. You don't have to
Yeah.
worry about what's the color for the font. You don't have to worry about the color for the side navigation bar. You just need to care about the chart parts. It kind of reduce the workload for our day-to-day analyst. So that is to me more powerful than aesthetic. Aesthetic is just that I don't want to create anything ugly, but that's not the sole
Yeah.
reason. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that makes total sense. I mean, I know lots of people have like mixed feelings about templates, but um, I think a lot of people who have mixed feelings about templates haven't worked in large organizations where people need to get stuff done and get out the door.
Mhm.
And yeah, like you said, you lower the barrier for folks to focus on the data work and worry less about the branding and the consistency. So I reached out to you to do this show. We've talked about this. I've talked about having you on the show in the past and never sort of got around to asking. But then a couple of months ago, you published a big dashboard called Talk Data Podcast to Me, which I kind of think went like as viral as things can go in our data viz community. So, that's pretty cool. And so I thought maybe you could kind of walk us through that project.
Yeah, it's well, first of all, it was my personal like passion project. No one's commissioning me to do it. I listen to a lot of data podcasts while I'm working out, cooking, driving. It's just a perfect time killer for me. But then I realized a lot of people, especially people that just not just people that just started practicing in data field, a lot of people work, even those that work in COE of a company, they didn't realize that, oh, there's something they call data podcasts. And because to them, data visualizations or statistics is something that's you have to do it on the screen, right? So without a screen, what is it to talk about?
Right.
So so I always wanted to compile a list, maybe on my blog, to show people these are the podcasts that I listen to. These are the graphic design YouTube channels that I followed. That may be another story, but I want to show people this list and then try to help people to get into the community or the network more. But then it would be very boring if I just give you an Excel spreadsheet with hyperlinks. So meanwhile, I've been hearing people talking about, oh, you can use ChatGPT to do coding a lot. Mm-hmm. So I thought, let's just try using it. So there's one weekend I talked to my ChatGPT and I was like, oh, write me a web scraping Python codes to get every episodes for Data Plus Love, the podcast channel. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I was like, okay, I like the data set. Now try to rewrite it to export it in CSV. Now rewrite it to get API credentials from my Spotify channel. Now rewrite it for 10 different podcast channels. And then step by steps, I got a huge data set.
Yeah.
And after that, I just explored it and then put it to Tableau. And then, of course, use my Figma magic to come up with the layout, the design, the color palette, and then put together the dashboard that you saw. Talk Data podcast to me is actually, coming from the euphemisms Talk Data to me. And that's before that was Talk Dirty to me. Yeah, Talk Data to me. And I was like, okay, how about Talk Data podcast to me? And because this is a personal project, it's not a business project. I try to make it a little bit fun, right? First of all, dark mode, not light mode. And also, if this is a business dashboard, everything would be rectangle, right? Yeah. It would be rectangle bars and everything. But I want to make it fun because it's for myself. So I make it, look a little bit like the synthesizer. Do you know the synthesizers for DJing? Yeah, trying to make it look like that, and then also leveraging the multi-hue sequential color palette, Verdist. And Verdist happens to have purple and green, which are the color for Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So it's like, okay, everything's aligned. Let's do it. Yeah. So that's the final outcome that you see.
So did you discover anything about your personal podcast listening habits by actually looking at the data?
So no, I did not look into which podcast I've played. For several reasons. Number one is I noticed because sometimes I do it on Spotify, sometimes I do it on Apple Podcasts. So it's not going to be complete. And second, I don't know how to solve this yet. But sometimes when you play it, it would replay. And if you did not replay it through, it would say that you didn't play it through.
Oh, interesting.
I was like, I already listened to this thing more than once. So I haven't solved that yet. So no, I didn't. So for that project, I didn't include any of my personal listening history in it. But I do know that like the some of the famous one, like Data Plus Love, Paul Civis podcast, I have to be frank, I didn't listen to all of them. I only picked the one that more on the graphical side.
Yeah.
Well, not just more on the graphical side. You also have a couple of episodes with, Jen Christensen or
Yeah.
those that talk about qualitative data. Those are the specific topics that I like. So
Yeah.
I rhyme with them. Yeah, and yeah. So that's the final outcome that you see.
So so I saw it like everywhere. I saw it on all my channels. And so what was the feedback? Like what were you hearing from people when they saw it and they started playing around with it?
I I'm trying to think. I think number one is a lot of people appreciate that I am like they never heard of a lot of these channels before. So it's more
Mm,
like in terms of knowledge, they
right.
appreciated that now we have it. And I think other than that, also those that are very good in data visualization, they would appreciate the UI interface, like how slick everything was, especially
Yeah.
when you click the bars around, the dots would just move very
Hmm.
smoothly. They're more technically impressed. But also, I also have a couple of people realizing that a lot of the channels stop. They has been discontinued.
Right.
So they're like, oh, I have a lot of episodes, but now you're showing me only have like couple of that because I only picked the last 5 years because that's
Right.
when hell break loose in the whole world. That's when I started listening to podcasts. So so
Yeah.
yeah, I got a mixed bag of reviews, but and also a lot of people were impressed by the color palette. Apparently there's
Huh.
still a lot of people didn't realize multi-hue sequential color
Yeah.
that are colorblind friendly
Huh.
is a thing. So
Yeah.
maybe you could invite people to talk about this because
For sure.
I think we need to have more conversations on other than the Inferna, Magma, Plasma, and Verdis. What
Yeah.
else that we can offer to the world?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Hmm.
Okay, so I want to ask you a couple of specific things about Tableau. So I want to start with we're in the new year here. What let's start with what do you like best and what do you hate? What do you like the most and what do you hate the most about Tableau?
I see. I see. Let's start with what I like most about Tableau. I think what I like most about Tableau is that it has a very mature and well built network of users that
Hmm.
are willing to help each other. I tried to check this with. You never heard this about Excel.
No, right, that's right.
You never heard this about R or Power. I mean, Power BI is trying to do something similar, which I appreciate because I think
Yeah.
in order for the Tableau users to get stronger, you need to have someone that's something else that's equally stronger to feed each other's the energy,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So that is something that I just find it amazing. I am part of this, community, of course, and I think just the fact that every time you throw a questions out there, someone would immediately jump into helping you without belittling you. Um, Most of the time, it's a it's a good thing. That's also
Yeah.
why I always feel very welcome when I step out of academia. People not just tell me that this guy's been living in ivory tower for his whole life. What does
Yeah.
he want to do with us? I've never received those vibes
Right.
in the Tableau user community. So that's something that I like the most. What I think may be something that's like can be improved the most, maybe I think currently there are a lot of discussions on. Well, first of all, I think there has a lot of opportunities to improve between different Tableau softwares, like
Mm.
Tableau Desktop, Tableau Public, Tableau Server, Tableau Cloud. If you
Yeah.
use any two of these four combos, you will realize that a lot of things that can only be done in one of them,
Yeah.
and it's very annoying to have to figure out what they are.
Yeah, I think that that's a really good point, but I think that's also true across lots of tools.
Mhm.
I was just finishing a paper with colleagues at work, and we were trying to do things in Word online, like on the equation editor. And I know
Mhm.
there are people rolling their eyes at doing equations in Microsoft Word, but you could not do it in the online version. So I do it on the desktop version, but then when uploading it back to the online version, it would break. And so I think there's that, that's kind of feels like a common problem right now.
Yeah, it's a common problem. However, does the user base mainly focus on one of them?
Right,
I feel like
right.
let me use Figma as an example. Figma has a desktop app and they also have a web app, but I bet like most people are using the web app.
Yeah. Right.
So that one better have the most functionality compared to
Right.
the rest.
Yeah.
I feel like because Tableau's user base, like day-to-day users, not those that use for fun, they're quite evenly across all these channels, all these different applications. So how do they balance that?
Right.
And if they were to always highlight these four products, then they need to improve the consistency between them. And I
Hmm.
think I know that there are a lot of efforts at the back end to trying to, you know, make these consistent.
Right.
I just wish, this is just me wishing it to come sooner. How about that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. No, I hear that. I hear that for sure.
yeah.
Um, so we're so at the beginning of the year here, what do you have guesses on what you or where do you think Tableau is heading as a tool now? Is I mean, we could call it a company as part of Salesforce. Like,
Hmm.
where do you think it's heading, and where would you like it to head? I mean, obviously, having these, as you just mentioned, having all these different versions, a
Hmm.
little bit more better handshakes between them. But like, where do you see it going? Where do you hope it's going to go? Do you have any fears about where it's going to go in this new world of AI cloud within Salesforce? Like, what do you thinking is going to happen over the
Hmm.
next year?
I think inevitably it would be very, very AI focused.
Hmm.
For good reasons, right? Because it's a new tool, everybody wants to use it. However, I think what I would like to see more in the future is that with the AI, would you be able to develop a system telling the analysts how to place themselves in this using like a lot of Tableau's recent demonstration, you will see that it's all about executive using the AI in
Hmm.
Tableau to figure out what it is. But we know that in real life, data sets often very inconsistent, very dirty, very problematic. So how can analysts join this conversation and become a
Mm.
safeguard to making sure that the data that they receive or interprets are proper? I think that conversation you haven't seen that much
Hmm.
in all of the promotion materials. I think they know they need to do it, but of course, ultimately, it's the executive that pay the bill, right? So the
Right,
commercials
right,
have
yeah.
to be very focusing on them. But I feel like then for the analysts, is there anything that you can tell us to make sure that the data that we feed into the system is correct? How to troubleshoot the data sets? If someone proposed two, contradicting metrics or formulas, how do we use Tableau to, harmonize everything?
Yeah.
These are this is not going to go away. Like big companies going to have data sets, multiple data sources that are not talking to each other. So how do we play the analyst role back into the conversation? That's something that uh, I want to see more.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. I mean, I'll ask you one last question. So back to your podcasting project, you kind of ended up building the code to get the data through ChatGPT. Do you foresee a world where you would be able to do that task directly through Tableau and have the data populate directly in Tableau? Or and let me also ask, like, that sounds great, but you just mentioned how data's messy and difficult, needs to be clean. Like, do you think that even that should be possible, or should be harder for people because then it forces them to be more careful with the data?
I think currently a lot of criticisms received by this AI models are that it doesn't tell you how confident it is. It always
Yeah.
sounded very confident.
Yeah, always
So
very confident. Yeah.
yeah, so when the like I don't want you to always give me a number. I want you to tell me if this data set may be like in has some flaws. You need to tell me that today we only receive 50% of the records as usual, but this is the number that we calculated or computed based on the result. But
Right.
FYI, we're missing 50% of the data set.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I feel like the FYI part, it's never mentioned in any of the results from ChatGPT. To be frank, the Spotify data, I used ChatGPT. The coding was perfect, but
Hmm.
for the other project that I had, I made for IronVis.
Hmm.
Those are data from IMDb and Wikipedia. ChatGPT couldn't solve the coding issue. Even though it spit out a code that was written so organizedly,
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't run it at all. I had to
Huh.
use Google AI.
Oh, wow.
Like, come on, friend, let's get
Yeah.
one more. And then I had to compare the codes one by one. So now I am the analyst trying to
Right.
harmonize these two systems.
Right.
Because these two systems, even though they will spit out seemingly perfect answers, someone need to be able to
Right.
someone need to be able to validate and test them. And
Yeah.
I think I foresee that to be my role in the future.
That's great. Well, I love the future looking piece of this. Kevin, thanks so much for coming on the show. I'll put links to your podcast dashboard and your Tableau Public and your site on the show notes, so people should be sure to check that out. Thanks a lot. I will see you at Tableau conference in a few months, and I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, talk to you soon. It's very nice to be on the podcast finally. Thanks for having me.
All right, thanks. Thanks to everyone for tuning in to this week's episode. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you'll take a moment to rate or review this show on your favorite podcast provider. And while you're doing that, if you have a moment, if you've checked out any of my books, from Better Presentations to Better Data Visualizations to Data Viz in Excel, I hope you'll take a second to rate or review it on your favorite book provider, be it Goodreads, Amazon, or wherever else you get your books. So be sure to stay tuned to this podcast. Hit that subscribe button so you can get more Data Viz content. It comes out every other week. And until next time, this has been the Policy Viz podcast. Thanks so much for listening.